Alright guys, so this time we're just going to go over a little bit of structure. So I'm going to cover the same things I covered in class. So first thing we're going to do is a foundation. So let's scroll on down to any elevation. And we are going to make a new level. I'm just going to click on level 1 here and copy it down 5 feet or so. And I'm going to name that level TO footing. That stands for top of footing. Okay. Then, just like last time, I'm going to go View, Plan Views, Floor Plan, and top of footing should be the only one here. Now you can see where my grid is. This is a case where your grid doesn't always have to be orthogonal. Usually works better if it is, but with what I drew, it works a little bit better to just have this random grid. Okay, so now we have to put our foundation walls in, and the foundation walls only go around the exterior of your building. I'm going to click Wall, and conveniently there is a wall called Foundation, so we're going to use that one. And then we're going to go from top of footing up to level 1. And typically it gives us that little warning message. So we're just going to place it and then move them. I'm just going to trace them the same way my other walls are. And do these. Do this one here. And then do a quick 3-point. Say there. Now if I go to 3D, I have walls all over the place. The way to fix this is select them. First off, change the top constraint to level 1 and hit apply. Next, change the space offset that's automatically -12 or so to 0 and hit apply. And this is what we're looking to have. So that's how you put foundation walls around the exterior. Our next step is adding a spread footing to this wall. All you do for that is click the Structure tab. Under Foundation here, click Wall. And this works best in 3D rather than 2D. You just click on your walls here. And I want it on the bottom of this wall. If I click on a wall up here, say that wall, it comes in at the top. That is not where we want it. We want it at the bottom of our walls. So I'm just going to go all the way around my building here. So it looks like that. Okay? That's the first thing you have to have done. Next, we need columns. I'm going to go to level 1. And there's a couple ways to do this. If you have a nice uniform grid, there's a shortcut. So I'm going to go Structure, Column, and you can click this At Grids button here, and then just highlight all your grids, and wherever the grids intersect, it's going to put a column there. So then hit the green check mark, and it put them there, but because we have that lower level, it just put them from our top of footing to level 1. But if I use the filter trick, which is draw a box over everything I have, hit filter right here, and this is everything that's in my view right now. I'm going to hit check none and turn on structural columns, which there's only 4. And now I can change the height of all those at the same time to where they go up to level 2. And you can see I only have 4 columns there. Not at the best positions either. So for me, what's going to work best is placing my columns manually. So the way I'm going to do that is typically you put your columns in corners or inside your walls. So I'm just going to place them in the walls here at specific corners. It's going to be different for each and every person where their columns are. So don't think that I am doing it the one and only way there is to do it. And I'm going to get rid of that one, and we'll keep this one in the middle for demonstration purposes, but I'm not actually going to use it, okay? So if I go back to 3D, and I do the same trick to make all my columns taller. So check none, structural columns, okay. Top level, I want level 2 for now. Now if I go back to level 1, you can see I have columns in all these corners here. I'm going to copy this one straight over into this wall. And I'm going to copy this one over here. Now what I would typically do would be rotate these columns. So these I would have to spin 45 degrees, so they're like that. And the same thing everywhere else here. Just so when I'm attaching my beams to them, it works out a little bit better. Now I can already tell that because my building is such an odd shape, I would have a very difficult time actually getting everything to work out just how I want it. So that is one drawback to doing a non-uniform building shape like this, is your structure is going to be a little bit weird. But I'm not grading based on whether your structure is right. I'm grading based on the fact that you can draw it. So if I want to see just my structure, I'm going to hit the letters V and G on the keyboard, and that stands for visibility graphics. So V and G back to back, and I get this menu that pops up. This is your visibility graphics menu. This is where we can shut parts off. So I'm going to shut my floor off. I'm going to shut the roof off, and let's shut my walls off as well. When I check those three things off, hit apply and OK. You can see it's a lot easier to see here. So for any column that's on the exterior here, which is basically all of mine except one, I want to change that base height to where it's at level 1. And the reason for that is those columns will sit on this foundation wall. Now this column sitting right in the middle that I'm not going to use structurally, just for an example here, I'm doing this. I'm going to keep that one at the height top of footing, but that one needs its own footing. So under structure, foundation, I'm going to click isolated right here. It's going to ask me to load something in, so I'm going to click yes. We're going to scroll on down to structural foundations, and we're just going to use this footing rectangular option. Once you do that, up here at the top, under multiple, click at columns, select your column. If you have multiple, you have to hold control and select them all. But once you have that, click the green check mark, and now that column has its own footing. Okay? So if I turn everything back on here, and apply, okay, you can see those columns sit on top of that wall. Now, if I wanted to be technically correct, I would offset my columns inside because your columns aren't actually directly inside of the wall. But for now, this is okay for just demonstration purposes. Next thing I'm going to do is add beams. I'm going to go to my level 2 floor plan. I'm going to make sure my view is set to fine. And under the structure tab, I'm just going to hit beam. Now I can do it in this plan, or I could use a structural plan. And if I want to do that, I would go view, plan views, structural plan, and I would do all these. So now I have structure plans as well as floor plans. Structure plans are good at looking for just your structures. You can see my columns show up a little bit better here. I'd probably shut my curtain walls off just because that makes everything kind of hard to see here. So if I shut my mullions off, it might help a little bit. But I'm just going to go structure, beam, and you can either do the shortcut of on grids, which is not going to work for me. But then you would do the same process of just highlighting all your grid lines and clicking the green check mark. What I'm going to have to do is place them manually. So I just did one while I was talking there, but it's literally click on the center point of the column, click on the center point of the next column. And you saw I changed my view from the default to a view of fine, because I'll show you guys here in a second. This beam right here, if I'm in a coarse view, it doesn't show up, or it shows up as a singular line, which isn't that useful. So I always like working in a fine view, mainly for that reason. When we get to ductwork, it'll behave the exact same way. So I'd work across my building here, putting my beams in. And if I shut my floor off here, you can see I have my beam right across there spanning between these two columns. So that's how you'd get your primary beams in there. The next thing you would do would be your secondary beams. And for that, I'm going to go structure and click on this beam system. The way this works is I specify a distance or specify a number. So let's go 4 feet or 5 feet. 5 should be okay for here. And when I'm in a closed bay, it's going to auto put those inside there. If I'm not in a closed bay, I can sketch my beam system, which would be I just draw that closed entity of beams that I want. And then green check mark, and now it's going to throw all those in there for me. If I jump back 3D real quick, you can see now I have 3 beams spanning across there. Now I would do the same process across the entire floor, and then I'd do the next floor as well. So the next floor, I would have columns coming down onto beams. This back column would be all the way up to the roof, and it would be a little bit of work to get this to actually work. But basically work across your building doing that. Okay, and then you don't need to do braces, you don't need to do trusses. We already have slabs. If you want other beams by chance, say I used a W10 by 49 because that was the default one. If you want a smaller beam or a bigger beam, go insert, load family, scroll on down to should be structural framing. And you can have wood, steel, concrete, light gauge steel, precast concrete. I would personally stick with steel. And you are going to want a wide flange. And then this shape menu comes up. Should look just like the midterm menu. But see, I can go down to a W5 by 19, which is significantly smaller. Like this, and the 10 by 33 there. If I go to my beams, there should be a 5 by 19. So you can see the size difference there. If you want columns, there's a structural columns one instead of structural framing, so you're going to have to use that one instead. So that should be everything you need for your first assignment. You have to do all this for everything. So we have the foundation wall, we have the spread footing, we have placing the columns, we have getting the columns at the correct level based on whether they are interior or exterior columns. Exterior sit on that foundation wall. Interior, you have to apply an isolated footing. After you do that, you make sure your columns are at the right heights respectively. Add your primary beams from column to column, and then add your secondary beams. You can either manually place them just by using the beam, or you can shortcut by using the beam system. If you use the shortcut for your columns of playset grids, let's say, let's just jump back over here real quick, and I will make a quick grid here. So let's say I have a grid similar to last time where I have a 3 by 3 grid here. and something like that. So when I place my columns, I do this shortcut method of select everything and the green check mark, and I get all these columns, as you can see over here. If you have a very dense grid, you're going to get a ton of columns. So just go through and delete the columns that aren't inside of a wall, and then connect the ones that you can with your beams. Okay? So it's going to be some guesswork. You might have to send me an email to figure out if it works or not, but give it a try. Shouldn't be terribly difficult. And yeah, if you have any questions, just shoot me an email.